move to the World Health Organization's international health international health regulations and the so-called pandemic treaty or accord or protocol, whatever it's called these days. The World Health Organization is currently reviewing two separate proposals to increase its powers. Firstly, the pandemic agreement. A very recent version of that document is on the World Health Organization website dated the 30th of October 2023. Is this the latest version? If not, can I have the latest version?
Mr. Excel.
Senator, I do think there may have been additional drafts, but I will just check and come back to you, and happy to provide the latest public release of the documents that are being considered.
Thank you.
Rotate the call after the next question, Senator Roberts.
I've just got one bracket on World Health Organization together.
I'll give you a couple of minutes leeway,
Okay,
but then I
thank
need
you.
to rotate.
The second proposal is for amendments to the World Health Organization's operating manual, the International Health Regulations. These were proposed by the United States in 2022. They have apparently been modified in a negotiating process over time, several times. Do you have the latest version of this document, please?
Again, the latest version of the document will be on the WHO website, but happy to provide that to you, Senator.
Thank you. The New Zealand government has published the sections of the International Health Regulation changes they will be supporting. So clearly their openness is more than yours on exactly the same matter. Minister, why is the government's position considered to be none of the public's business on this very significant International Health Regulations draft?
Senator Roberts, I totally disagree with your question in terms of the government not wanting to advise Australians on issues. So I totally reject outright the premise of your question.
While the latest public version of the pandemic agreement does not sign away Australian sovereignty, the latest published version of the International Health Regulation Amendments does sign away Australian sovereignty. Minister, will the Albanese government support the International Health Regulation Amendments if it continues, as written, to include compulsion on Australia to follow World Health Organization directives?
Our government always looks to the international sector in terms of what's going on, whether it's in health or any other areas, Senator. So we will always continue to do that. But of course, our priority is Australians and the sovereignty of our decisions in regards to health for Australians.
To guaranteeing sovereignty.
I think that we would agree with the characterisation that it cedes sovereignty. Mr. Excel might want to comment on how that will operate in practice.
So just happy to add, Senator, I think both draft documents that are available refer to protecting the sovereignty of nations. The process is actually a member state process, so in that sense there is no WHO. The working groups are led by member states, the participation is by member states. And then when there's consideration of the Australian government, there is a formal process through the JSCOT mechanism that actually individually considers each and every resolution or change or consideration that comes forward. So there is no notion of Australia giving up sovereignty. There's an active process of consideration at both levels, the World Health Organization by Australia and other countries, and then when it reaches domestic ledge, that's also considered very carefully.
Thank you. I understand that in earlier versions of the International Health Regulations there was strongly worded compulsions, but the African nations and several members of parliaments and Congress around the world have kicked up such a stink that the International Health Regulations have been watered back down again. But I'm very concerned about the sovereignty.
Senator, there's always a range of proposals and resolutions and adapted text that is happening right now. There are consultations that are underway. The due date for a draft to go to the World Health Assembly is by May this year. They're trying to do that. But there are lots of changes and discussions going on. So I wouldn't want to comment on one particular draft or one particular set of ideas put forward by various countries.
Senator, can I just add there, though, Senator, I have to reiterate that in terms of public health policies, Australia will always retain its own sovereignty in making decisions around our borders. I need that to be really clear with you, Senator.
I need to be very clear. I'm concerned about how much the international influence, particularly through the World Health Organization, drove our response to COVID. Minister, will you give a clear statement now that the directions of the World Health Organization are not binding on Australia? The decision to follow WHO guidance, if it's made, is entirely a matter for the Australian government, who can then be held to account for these decisions.
The World Health Authority is exactly that. The World Health Organization can give advice but it has no legal mechanism to be able to enforce it upon us. As I've said, Australia has its own sovereignty in regards to making policy decisions around health for Australians and our borders. I don't think I can be any clearer.
I hope the term World Health Authority is not a Freudian slip.
Senator Steele